So great, I'm going to start my presentation, Vital Signs Long-Term Monitoring of Aspen within the Park Service Upper Columbia Basin Network. My uh, co-authors there are Steve Bunting from our department and also Lisa Garrett and Dicus from the Park Service. So this Aspen monitoring project is part of a larger scale monitoring within the Upper Columbia Basin network, which is located up here. We have Aspen, Bats, Camas, Lily, and so on. 14 different vital signs that has been selected, and Aspen was one of those vital signs. We started this project in 2006, so we were about 6 years into working in the area. So why did the Park Service select Aspen for these parks as a vital sign? Well, it has been talked about as a keystone species, which is an indicator of ecosystem health and function. We've heard a lot about that today. Decreasing in species richness and biodiversity might follow if there's a decrease in aspen. So even if you have a relatively small portion of aspen on the landscape, which is in these parks, they provide a lot of biodiversity and additional species habitat. They do provide forage quality and quantity, and that's for both wildlife and livestock if they are areas. If you lose aspen, you might lose have altered hydrologic functions, particularly if the aspen is replaced by conifers. And aspen decline has been occurring, particularly when this project started in 2006. The southern aspen syndrome was really prevalent in southern Idaho and Utah and Colorado. So it's very interesting looking at if this was actually also happening in these parks. In the light of climate change, these particular areas that I'm talking about are located at very low elevation for aspen. So if there is a sign that there's a change caused by climate, these parks might be one of the first to experience such change. So the parks we're working in that were selected for aspen monitoring is Craters of the Moon National Monument and also City of Rocks National Reserve on the Idaho-Utah border. And elevation range for these two areas, Chromo and Sierra, as I might refer to them as, is 1,600 to 2,300 meters for Chromo and 1,700 to 2,700 for City of Rocks. And both parks is a little lower than 400 millimeters, so it's really very low. The precipitation patterns, snow in the winter and spring, and dry summers and fall. And we do have some livestock grazing in historical allotments in City of Rocks, while there's no livestock grazing in Craters of the Moon, although there is quite a bit of wildlife browsing in Craters. So I'm just going to show you some pictures, photos of the area so you get a feeling for what this area looks like. This is a stand in Cedar Rocks. A relatively overstory there. The little less maybe in that particular. Here's another one of those stands, kind of mid-elevation. You can see the forage quantity, quality. This is a very nice aspen stand. Nice to have lunch in for sure. This is a little higher elevation. This aspen stand is mostly in a. You can see a few conifers coming in there, but not a whole lot. There's some aspen die off quite a few trees in that particular stand. And here's the highest elevation we have at City of Rocks. Also here, the overstory appears to be declining while there is. This is Craters of the Moon. This is maybe the lowest elevation stand at Craters. You see that's more located in a brush type environment. And also in a pocket where snow accumulation can be expected to occur. And then we have some more upland stands on the hillsides. most of the stands in craters are related to this drainage or part of the watershed craters. I'm just including this picture to show the breadth of where aspen actually can grow. This is the cinder cone. Aspen is actually growing into the cinder. There's really no in that area. We're not really sampling that part anymore. It's too much of a sensitive ecological area to climb up there and sample. But we were up there once and it was quite interesting to see how aspen. There are some conifer expansion in the parks, not very predominant actually. There's Douglas fir, Rocky Mountain juniper, limber pine, some subalpine fir, but it doesn't appear to be a huge problem in these parks. Browsing and grazing, we do have definitely browsing, particularly in craters. One of our field assistants, he was fascinated by all kinds of animal signs. Wanted to try out one of these elk beds, so she went to sleep and took a little nap there. She was from New York, I think, or from the East Coast, but she thought that was great. And in the stand, there are elk beds just about everywhere. It's a favorite, very favorite spot for elk and deer. Grazing occurs only in buildings in city parks, but in craters, none, because it's under the National Park Service. So the monitoring objectives for our long-term monitoring is what is the aspen regeneration for the parks? What's the status and trend in conifer density? What's the status and trend in mature aspen density? And what is the status in aspen stand? Four very defined questions. And we implemented plots. We used aerial photography to delineate the area, and also went out to field reconnaissance and aerial photography. The stands using GIS and put them onto maps and are storing all that in the GIS database. And sampling plots were located within, and we also established photo points. In City of Rocks, we originally mapped 67 stands, but we ended up putting 46 plots in 16 stands in 2008 and 45 plots in 8 stands in 2009. We did not put any plots in stands that were located on private land, very high on the hillside, the shrubby, snow damaged plots in those. We did not include the aspen that was directly in the riparian zone or those that were smaller than 1 hectares. These stands were established, or the plots were established in 08 and 9. For craters, similarly, we established 208 plots in 22 sample days, 07 and so when we establish these plots, when we sample, we have the aspen density within size classes. Size class 1 would be the suckers, smaller than about half a meter or 1.5 foot. Class 2, between 1.5 to 5 feet. Class 3, greater than, let's see, greater than 5 feet, and also less than 1 inch in breast height. And class 4 is those that are greater than 1 inch, indeed greater than 75% of the stand height of the mature class. Have the dead stems that are still standing or fallen on. Our resampling schedule, we are the first time through we'll sample every 3 years or 3 years apart in these parks. We have 3 panels, 1 in craters and 2 rocks because we have more rocks. But eventually we'll go through 5. That's what we'll do. So after this summer, we'll take a break for a couple of years. So we put in transects that are 25 meters apart. We have usually four plots in a transect. The plots themselves are plots, we count all the stands at the different size classes. The number of transects in the stands are weighted by size, and so larger stands will have more plots. Had a random start location for each transect, and then we just lined them up either north, south, or east, west. The plots were located using or are located using GPS, and they are permanently marked. And the permanent marking was an important part of this protocol. We determined that we needed to have permanent plots that were permanently marked with rebar in the parks to be able to recount and get the statistical power that we needed to actually detect. And we also take photo points, so a distance photo of the. And all the information is stored in a database that the Park Service maintains. And most of the data collection is actually done using paper forms. So a little bit of results. Stem density, looking at change from 2007 to 2010 in craters, actually saw an increase in the park as a whole. So that was a positive result, and the regeneration class was statistically significant for the suckers. Other size class not significant at the 0.05 alpha level. So far, it looks like the park as a whole is doing well when it comes to regeneration. There's a high variability between stands. So some stands have an increase and some have a decrease. Stem counts within the different size classes. So all the stands, these are the stand numbers, and the ones that are color coded in green have had an increase in that size class, and the yellow have a decrease in that size class. There are some stands that there are some there's this one stand, unfortunate for it, I guess, it ended up being number 13. It's one that is kind of falling apart. When my colleague Steve Bunting was working on a different project, he tells me, the managers tells me that this stand had a lush round of Aspen. It really not very much left, and in 2010 even falling apart. There is some regeneration at the lower end, and we'll just have to see what happens with that. It'll be interesting to go back. This is exactly that same stand in 2010. You can see almost the overstories and but the understories. Potentially of the southern Aspen syndrome of the stands we've looked at that could fit in that description. Another stand in craters that has, or both of these two stands actually in craters have a lot of wildlife use. They appear to be hangouts for elk and deer. The other stands don't really have very much sign of elk and deer. It's definitely has decreased any suffering or regeneration class. So fencing could potentially definitely be an option for those two stands if the Park Service would like to try something like that. And I think I already described those are the problem stands, or those that potentially could need some management. For City of Rocks, we had actually a similar trend. We also had an increase in regeneration at City. We have not sampled the 2012 panel yet, so we haven't done the statistical analysis. One stand that really sticks out is number 33, located here around this large rock. The suckering increased significantly last week. It was about 200 stems per hectare in 08. Last year when we got back there, it was 66,000 stems per hectare. And it's been baffling me a little bit, and I asked Bob about that yesterday because I thought he might be able to shed some light over it. And he said that there might have been an frost that defoliated the stand and then back, but that induced suckering in the stand. So we need to go back and look at what this looks like in a couple of years again. Suckers survive or cohort of trees. So that's the picture of that vigorous suckering in that particular stand. Stem density in those trees in City of Rocks, there are a few stands that have very low mature size class. Otherwise, Rock seems to be doing well. There are a few stands that have high stem counts, so conifers, maybe 3 or 4 stands. And I'm not sure what the park might do about that. They could potentially out if they want to keep. And that's those identified there. And then we have finally just a comment on this stand number 6, where the overstory appears to be disappearing, but there is plenty of regeneration. One question that we've been asking is, are the regenerating trees become the same height as the original stems? And it doesn't look like it so far, but maybe time will tell. Or so some of the lessons learned, to finish up here, permanent plots were necessary for us to obtain adequate statistical power in looking at the permanent markers were necessary to put in. First we tried to use just the GPS coordinates, but we went back to the same plots, so the same place. We've been using permanent rebar to put in and locate them using it back to the same spot. The relocation rate for our markers is about 85%. Some of them we can never find if we put them in, but the next time we come back, they are there or we cannot find them. The fact that we placed the plots 25 years apart was a statistical analysis that we used variogram analysis to look at. So if they were 25 years apart, you can basically say that they are halfway through that analysis. And I'm really intrigued by go back to the same place, how the stand changes. You might see a kind of this suckering coming up in the stand number 33, and maybe if I come back 10 years ago, I wouldn't even have known that happened, and being able to follow up those kinds of events. Some questions raised. This suckering in stand 33 has been that we are about why it happened. Why is stand 13 in craters falling apart? Is it sudden Aspen death, or is it something else? Will it regenerate? Aspen reach the height of the old Aspen cohort in some of our stands? With observed wildlife browsing regenerate reduced, for example, by fencing? That's another question we have. Those are the main questions that has come up so far, and just like to thank our team of Park Service and University of Idaho folks and everybody who's helped us with field safety. I'm looking forward to continuing this project for another 6 cycles. We do have a monitoring protocol published in case anybody's interested. It's on the Park Service website. And I'll take any questions if we have time.
We do have time for this.
Okay, great. I noticed you're close to Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Speaking.
And given the fact that they've been seeing some ecological responses in terms of aspen and cottonwood as a result of wolves and altering that wild elk browse pressure, possibly an option besides just fencing should wolves move in to this area. I'm just wondering, given the fact that you're not having to deal with some of the challenges of having livestock in that conflict. Is that something you're just kind of keeping an eye out for?
I definitely read the literature on it about both Yellowstone. Yeah, those publications are very interesting. There are no wolves in the area, as far as I know. There are cats. We know that they're there. Uh, it would be for certain. I don't know what the park would think, or if it is really very.
What about the cats? Because it's not just wolves, but oftentimes large predators in general and some of the other parts we're seeing. So are the cats having any influence on wild ungulate movements?
You would think so. They are sharing the beach. They come into this. I don't think they spend all their time there, but they definitely come across the mountain as the elk and deer.
Paul?
Just want to make an announcement if anyone's interested in this Western Aspen Alliance, you can sign up here now for the lower price of nothing.
Excellent. We'll take a break right now and we'll resume our next presentation at 10:40. Okay?
Yeah.